that they each have like 3 parts and the balloons like
Two shanks and a swivel.
yeah,
Okay, good. No, so give me something.
like how many layers are
Okay, so double jacket rubber line is 3 layers of hose. Those small ones pass around have 2 layers. Oh, no, got something?
I didn't know about the minimum size of the booster line.
You didn't know about what?
The minimum size of the booster line.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyone else pick up anything? Patrick?
The minimum size to put on a dumpster fire, car fire is 1.5 inches.
That's a good one. All right. What else? What's that?
The manufacturing process.
Good? Good? Williams?
The amount of varieties of couplings.
Okay, good. And there's going to be more that we're going to see, but most of them we don't use. That's what we typically use, right there. We'll show you more, but you probably won't use them.
The difference between like the ones in the hose boxes and ours, the difference between the one in the hose boxes at like industrial places and like
Oh, okay, the hose cabinets?
the hose cabinets, the difference between ours and theirs.
Good, good. Kathy, you got something else?
They have the 50-foot and 100-foot section beds.
Good, good. All foundational stuff. And everything else? Supply versus attack? Anything like that? Sound familiar? Go ahead, Flory.
Supply is, it supplies water to the truck, and attacks the fire.
Okay, supply line from the water source to the truck. Usually,
Fire
okay, fire hydrant, but what size hose?
Oh. Beats me.
Okay. LDH 456 could also be Kevlar. Section. 2.5. Could also be 2.5. All right, not too much anymore. Most of us have switched to LDH, so we don't have to worry about multiple 2.5 supplying. And a car fire, 2.5 is going to be fine as a supply line if you're going from a hydrant. But if you get into a house fire, you want extra reserve, so you may have multiple lines going on. All right, so we're kind of up where we're at now, covered some basic stuff. Fire hose components. So we talked about this at one of our practical days before we left on break. So these are what your spanner wrench will grab onto to tighten, usually not, but loosen, hand tight to tighten. But here and here. Again, if you have a nut and a bolt that are tight, what do, Jones? Where's Jones? Ah,
Use the where that turns.
you gotta twist it, you gotta untwist it, okay? So, that's what we're gonna do, untwist. But because we put it together hand tight, and we put pressure on it, it may have gotten to the point where when we relieve the pressure, you can't undo it by hand. Okay, so we'll try a little knee press, drain everything out of there, push your knee on it, press it together, and pull it apart. Same thing if it's attached to the truck discharge. Try to push in a little bit and pull it out if it doesn't go easily, and twist it. If it doesn't work, then use your spanners. How many types of spanners do we have on our truck? Types. 2. Okay? One of them is for LDH, and the others for your attack lines, 1.5 inch, 2.5. Okay, where on the truck do we have attack line spanner wrenches? Alan?
Back and sides of the truck.
Back and both sides, so you will never be far from spanner wrenches to get them loose from your attack lines. The driver's side of the truck, on the outside, don't have to open compartment, they are there. Passenger side, don't have to open a compartment, they are there. Rear of the truck, you don't have to open a compartment, they are there. So there's 3 spots right there on our truck that have 2 spanner wrenches. If you have a tight coupling, don't get 1 spanner wrench, get 2. Okay, 1 going in each direction. Right, now remember too, in this swivel, you will have a gasket. You can just kind of see it right there, but we did take those out on our practical day. We know that if you squeeze them and they bounce right back, that's fine. If you squeeze them and they start to crumble apart and don't squeeze and bounce back, then you need to replace them. Usually on every engine there's a compartment that has some. Mine is the engineer's compartment where the hoses are. But before you replace them, just let me know you are doing that so I can put some more in there if I need to. All right, so when we attach these two sections of hose, over you. Brookshire, it's me and you. All right, so stand up, please, right here by the camera. All right, so mine will not turn. He has a swivel. So when I attach my hose to his, I am going to take the Higby indicator, okay, 3 lugs, right, rocker lugs. This one does not have anything, this one does not have anything. This one has that notch, that Higby indicator. What does that mean?
When the thread starts.
It's where the threads start. So I am going to bring it to Brookshire with that up. He is going to take his Higby indicator on the swivel and put it so it is up, so it will be right where the threads start. We are going to put our hoses on the same plane. So mine is this way, his is this way. So it goes into a hose bed easily if we attach it like this. His job, if he has the female end, is to attach it. My job is to look away. Okay, because the problem is if we are not lined up, I'm likely to try to align, and he's likely to try to align, and we're going to be playing that game all day long. So my job, hold it there, Higby up, look away, keep it on a flat plane. And his is going to be, when it's all attached, which it is, on a flat plane. So if we go to put this in a compartment or a hose bed, it's going to lie flat. Okay? As opposed to, see how that's going to be a problem? Because this is flat and this is 90 degrees, or 90. Okay, so it's not going to lay flat. If this is going to be flat and this is going to be on its side. So it won't lay flat. So we want it to be flat. Good? Hey. All right. What else on this? We've got the female, the male. The rocker lugs are the most common lugs for attack lines. We'll show you some other ones, but no one uses them. Okay, shank, shank, swivel. Good? 2 shanks and a swivel, like a couple. All right. Connect couplings hand tight to avoid damage to the coupling and the gasket. Right. If you have to disconnect, now here it says connecting, and they just said connect hand tight, and then they say connecting couplings, and it shows spanners. Do not use spanners to connect. Okay? Only to disconnect if they are too tight to get by hand. And you can't do it by hand with 2 people or using that knee press to take some pressure off. Then you can use your couplings, 1 in each direction, and you'll be fine for disconnecting. Notice too how they have this exactly wrong. This is flat and this is on its side, just like that. Maybe I should go to these people when I retire and say, let me look at your pictures and tell you how wrong some of them are. All right, so this one I'm going to show it to you, and then we're going to move on because you don't need it. Yeah, go.
So let's say that ISO has the, but like, how would you store them in the bed of the truck?
How would you store what?
Like the hose. Like, if you got like too much hose, can it just put it in the back of the truck, or?
All right, so your hose bed is where you put the majority of your hose typically. And you set that up by department. Okay? And usually you have like partitions in there. Okay? Because okay, I want this much for LDH, and I want some 2 pre-connects over here, 2.5 and 1 3/4, or 2 3/4, or 2 1/2. So you can kind of adjust those a little bit. It's nuts and bolts to get it out and adjust and things like that, but it can be adjustable. There's also some spots on the truck, like those cross lays that we have on the truck that go out one side and the other, truck going forward, the left side or the right side.
Station 31 user responded to request at EMS home location, 5710 Whitmer Lake Road, just south of Grand River, at DSW Dental Associates. Got a female in a vehicle they'd like checked for CO. Tell them at 814.
Check for CO. What did they say? Carbon dioxide? Okay. Odd, but anyways, we'll go there and see what it is. Simple enough. All right, so where else can we store? We can store it on those crosslays, which typically can be called crosslays. They can be called pre-connects. They can be called Matty Dales. So it kind of depends what your department uses, but those are some of the common ones. There might be shelves. There might be spots on the bumper. There might be a little box up on your front bumper or your rear bumper. You might store hose in compartments, high-rise packs, and things like that. So they could be stored anywhere. Hose could be stored anywhere. Just got to figure out where your department puts it. All right, good. So, all right, so most of your hose is going to have rocker lugs like these. That's rocker lugs. All right. What's the problem with these?
You stick out, you get caught in something when you're dragging it.
They stick out, they're going to get caught on something, they're going to hit a curb, they're going to break, they're going to be a pain in the butt. So we don't use those, no one does. I've never seen them on a hose ever. Okay, recess lugs. Only place I see these is on booster hose. Okay, on a booster reel, okay, and usually that reel is electronic, and you can step on a button and it will wind up, and then all you gotta do is pull and it will unwind, like kind of like what we have out here. It has recessed lugs, so it has a little wrench with a little pin on the end of it, and you can use that to tighten and loosen those. But you never take them apart, typically. So you have one of those wrenches, and it's usually stored in the engineer's compartment. It's not like all over the truck because you're not going to loosen it. It's non-collapsible hose. It's on a reel, so it doesn't matter if I need 10 feet or 200 feet. It's on a reel. All I got to do is pull the discharge lever, and it fills it up. And unlike your flat hose, which is going to expand in the hose bed and create kinks, this is not. It's on a reel. And it's hard, so it's not going to collapse or flatten or create any problems. So that's what we typically do, is we will charge the whole thing, only use what we need, and then roll it right back up. Good to go. All right, so rocker lugs, most common on your attack lines. Recess lug, if you have a booster line, red line, that's what you're going to have it on. Pin lugs, you're not going to see them.
Hey, Joshua.
Yep. All right, handles or extended lugs. On swivels of large intake supply or suction hose, handles or extended lugs. Firefighters can grasp these when tightening the large coupling that connects the hose to the pump valve intake. Striking with a mallet can loosen or tighten couplings. Okay, so these are like ears. They stick out a little bit further, giving you a little bit more leverage and get your whole hand on them. But you're usually only going to find them on your hydrant connection or your pumper connection. We don't put those on the 100-foot connections on your LDH because they will take up extra room in the hose bed. And as you load and unload, they're going to break off. So typically we put those in places that aren't going to get moved a lot. And what are we going to call that? Large diameter fire hose extend. Right there. Okay, this guy and this guy. Two of them opposite each other. You can use them to tighten. If it's on your truck, you can tap it with a mallet, get it a little bit tighter, that's fine. But that is what they are talking about on that slide. All right, so non-threaded couplings, Storts, the most common. Okay, sexless, non-threaded, whatever you want to call that. This, why not?
Because they get damaged.
Okay, they stick out, damage. Same thing as the other here, the pin lugs. Same thing. It sticks up, takes up extra room in the hose bed. They stick out, they can get dragged, they can break, they can get damaged easily. We want simple. We want simple and easy. All right, so that's what you're going to see on your LDH. Non-threaded coupling, so we're talking about LDH here. Advantages, hose can be connected quickly, quarter turn, right? And it's not a wrong way to do it, so that you don't have to look for threads to start. Bates, can you grab that? No risk of cross-threading. Double male or double female adapters are not needed because both ends will connect to any end. Okay, there isn't a male or a female, so you don't need any adapters. Hose can be deployed from hose bed regardless of the hose load type. So why hose can be deployed from hose beds regardless of hose load type? I think that's true of any hose load, right? Can be deployed from hose beds. Anyways, disadvantages. Hose can become uncoupled suddenly and violently if complete connection is not made. So you've got to listen for that click. Okay, once it clicks, you have an option. Most apartments do this. You know that little thing you have to push to get it to undo? Most apartments get that. Okay, it's a lock. Okay, so once it's attached, it locks in place. You have to manually flip that lever to get it to unlock. Hydrants require an adapter to make the connection unless you have gone through your city and switched your hydrants out to sexless Storts connections. Some departments have. But even in Livonia, where our LDH was Storts couplings, we still had a hydrant adapter that threaded on because we had so many hydrants in Livonia. Livonia was built a long time ago, so it wasn't cost efficient for us to go back and start changing our hydrants from threaded to Storts. But some communities did. Westland, one city over from us, they did change their hydrants and their FDCs to Storts. So it's a decision that has to be made, and we've got to be ready for it. They should notify us. But again, part of what a firefighter is you got to start thinking of plan B. What happens if this doesn't work? Okay, where are the adapters? Where are the couplings? Where is the compartment? That kind of stuff. In case this doesn't go together like it should, what are my options? And dirt debris can become lodged inside the coupling grooves. Okay, well, yeah, that's with any hose. Drag it across dirt when it's not coupled together, and you're going to attach some mud and junk like that in there. All it takes is water to fix that problem. Squirt it with the hose before you get back and you put it back on the truck. Some fire and emergency service organizations that have adopted two-way couplings for their supply hose operations use permanent adapters installed on hydrants for fire hydrant connections. So they do not have the threaded coupling and you need the adapter to go to your LDH. Usually it's affixed onto one end of your hose, the first one to come off. But some have adapted so your hydrants are sexless. So they're Storts, you quarter turn them out. All right, good? All right. Inspecting hose. Hose should be inspected and service tested within 90 days of being placed in service and annually thereafter. Inspect after each use as you're putting it back on the truck, just a quick inspection. All right, so the first one. When you buy hose from a manufacturer, it is tested at the site, you know that, but we want you to test it, the department that buys it. So it's called an acceptance test. It means we will accept this hose if it passes our test. So we take this hose, we hook it up, and we run it through a test. All right, so this test is when we pressurize it to a pressure greater than we would normally ever use it for in the field. How much pressure do we test our SCBA cylinders at?
35,000.
7,500, if you remember that little hydro sticker. How much do we put in the film? 4,500. So it's tested way higher. If it's gonna fail, it fails during the test. We do the same thing with hose. We are gonna test it at a far greater pressure than we're ever gonna pressurize it at. And if it's gonna fail then. If not, then we send a letter, sign it, and it goes to the manufacturer that we accept this hose. We have tested it all, and it all works just fine. We take it, they bill, we pay, blah, 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 blah. All right, so that is your acceptance test, and it's got to be done within 90 days. It has to be tested annually thereafter. So most departments in the state of Michigan test their fire hose sometime between May and September because it's nice weather outside. No one does it in January in Michigan because you got to lay the hose out.
So is the acceptance test kind of like a CYA?
In a way, yeah. It basically says that they gave us hose that is good, and we agree that it is good. So we're not going to come back in a year and say you gave us bad hose. I said, a year? A lot can happen in a year. You could have run over it 50 times. It could have been subjected to, acid or a hazmat spill or a million things in that time. So we got to come up with a period that says, okay, this is good. Like your car. If you buy a new car and you have to have it in for repairs so many times within a certain period of time, then it's subject to what's called a lemon law. See an attorney on that. Has anyone heard of that term before? A couple have. Okay, lemon law says this car has had to go in multiple times for service in a short period of time. It's not where it needs to be. You can have the car. I want all my money back. We want to break this contract. Got to be done within a certain time frame. I can't take my car to Ford right now and say, you know what, it's burning a little bit of oil, so I want my money back. So that's yes. All right, and inspect after use. So every time that we attach the hose, we check for a gasket. We go ahead and click it together and hand tighten, same plane, and then load it back up, or put it back in your storage. Some departments have extra hose. And when you get back from a fire, throw your hose off, put the new stuff on, your truck is now ready to go. Then you can deal with that hose later, okay? If it's the cotton stuff, because then you got to rinse it, clean it, scrub it, and then you got to hang it up to dry, and then you wait till it's dry, and then you can roll it back, and then you can put it back on the truck. But initially you can't because of the mold and mildew for wet hose. But the rubber lined hose, simple. You put that right back on the truck. Doesn't have to be hung up, dried, any of that stuff.
Oh, this is kind of a random question, but when you're using foam with a hose, do you actually run the hose without any foam after to rinse it out?
Yeah. So foam is an additive that, think of it as soap, like on your dishes. Okay, so you want to take the soap, you want to clean it, then you want to rinse it afterwards to make sure all the soap is gone. So, same thing. Inspect after each use for hose. So you don't have to test it. You test it once a year. We'll talk more about testing later, but inspect it every time. I mean, you got to sit there anyways. Oh, I saw it. Darn it. I didn't get it. I saw it. Tire, you're going to miss, the camaraderie, shift change, catching up with other people and talking, and station coffee and all that stuff. Number 2 on the list. Packing hose, and I knew we were starting the hose chapter, so let me read this paragraph to you. Kneeling in the hose bed, standing on the rear step, shouting, coupling, or whatever your warning is when the coupling is coming. Being in line is the line we use to battle the blaze, our return to their berth, foot by foot, hand over hand, passed between officers, senior firefighters, and probies, all working together to get the trucks ready for the next one. It doesn't matter if it's noon on a Sunday or 3 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. The only people in the world are those ones packing the hose. Camaraderie, pride, and the sense of belonging to something greater than ourselves.